when I see a cop, I can't lie, my heart drops. You know what I mean? It's this underlying fear that the things that we see on the media, the things that we see, Twitter, the news, and things, the first thing you think about is like, damn, this is about to happen to me. You know what I mean? But when you pass by the cop and they don't do anything, it's kind of like a sigh of relief. You know what I mean? It's scary. It's scary, and it's also kind of sad, because my thing with white America is I want to know, what do you see when you look at us? You know what I mean? Like what goes through your head when you come across us or the sight of us? Because I know that with history, it's been taught that the darker melanin human being is lesser than. You know what I mean? The lighter you are, the better. And I'm related to a few white people in my family. I never really looked at them as people who were racist or prejudiced or anything that looked down upon me. But in a general sense, it's just always been, kind of a confusion. And as in the Black household, and I'm pretty sure any minority household, you're taught to not necessarily like trust the white person because they don't trust you, and that's where that divide is created. And it necessarily isn't a race thing, and that's what we've been taught. That has always been a race thing. It's always been black against white, white against black, and it's not. It's not that. It's, if you want to get to the surface level, it's been classism. It's been rich versus the poor, because even rich white people treat poor white people like shit. You know what I mean? And rich black people treat poor, like I've experienced these things where, your quote unquote uppity black person or whatever would turn their nose up at, a quote unquote poor black person, and I've experienced these things and I've seen it. But it's just it. I can't help but to not have a frustration towards it, or feel some type of way, or like the first time I've been called the N-word, I believe I was like 9. I understood it, but I didn't at the same time. It was like why, for what? You know what I mean? It was like I was just standing on the street, minding my business, and this was somebody who was a poor white man. I'm not rich. I don't have money, millions of dollars, thousands. You know what I mean? I don't have this crazy platform, but as a 9-year-old kid, you you hold that inside of you. You know what I mean? And not only that, not only did he call me a slur, it was, he had a guitar and like he was gonna hit me with it and shit. So it's like you grow this rage inside of you too. It's like, all right, this is how white people feel. All right, fuck y'all then. You know what I mean? But you grow up and you know yourself more, you educate yourself more, and you realize that's not even the issue. You know what I'm saying? It's not even the issue that it's us against them. It's us against the system that is created. And also where my frustration lies is the white people who solely lean on racism and believe it so wholeheartedly. I just completely lost my train of thought, but it's just always been like a frustration type of thing, and like a confusion until I got to, I want to say till high school. I went to like a predominantly white school in Buckeye. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Verado. Yeah, so I went there. Yeah, for real. No, you like my mom's, one of my mom's like good friends back in the day, like a really good friend, like they were like sisters type thing. And she was telling me about the school, and this is when I had moved to the suburbs. This was like I want to say my second time going into the suburbs, and I was just like, being inner city. Like I went to Trevor Brown, like I grew up in Maryvale and shit like that. So like that's kind of like what I'm used to. That's what I'm comfortable with. So when they telling me like, yeah, you know, it's the school is kind of like Saved by the Bell. I watch Saved by the Bell, and I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna like it. I'm not gonna like this shit, man. And when I got there, it was like, okay, I see what it is. It was always something. It was a new topic, a new rumor about something every week, and you got all these white kids driving Mustangs and their US, SUVs and shit like that. And it was dope to see the other side of like reality. You know what I mean? Where these people aren't experiencing poverty at all, at any level. You know what I'm saying? Because they could wake up in 3-story house, wrap around. Like, to see a wrap around staircase was like fucking crazy. And it didn't make me like say like, oh, you guys got it better than me, so I'm just gonna forever act like this. Maybe to a certain extent, but it kind of made me realize like, man, like, I'm here for a reason. I can get there myself, even as a black man. But even then, it's just like, it was just crazy to see that when I go back home, I'm like, man, we playing the wrong game. We playing backwards. Like, you go to Verrado, they got a real estate agency. They got their own schools. They got their own neighborhoods. They got their own little networks and grocery stores and things like that. And that inspired me to take that same idea back from where I'm from and want to build something there, like infrastructure and things like that. And I think it's more of a economic thing, not necessarily a color thing, or where we're from, or who we hang out with, or things like that. Because I have rich friends, I have poor friends. That shit never really mattered to me. It was just more of, how can we all get together where this shit we call life is now all of ours. Right. That's where I'm at with it. But yeah.
I think very early on, like Slator was saying, it's a lot of confusion, and with confusion comes fear. So it's crazy that you said you were like 9, because I feel like as like black kids, that's usually like when you do have your first brush with like brash racism.
Yeah, real talk.
It's like that like 9, 10, 11-year-old range.
Yeah.
I don't know how old I was, but I was in that range. The first time I ever got followed around the store, my mom had sent me to the Safeway on Dunlap to go pick up butter for the morning, and I went in there with some money. I'm just looking around because they moved the store around a lot. It's a big store, so I'm just looking around like confused, basically just walking around like a long time, like not buying anything. And then out the corner of my eye, I noticed I don't know if he was like an employee. That's what was the most scary part. Like, I couldn't tell who he was or like identify him like in any way. He had a black shirt on, white dude, and I realized he was like following me. So like when I picked up on it, I started like walking down aisles to see like if he was like trailing me, and like sure enough, I get to one end, he'd be at the other, and then like as soon as I get up to the front, he goes like back by the door and like kind of just stands there. So I just buy the butter, and it's like you're confused, like, because I know what that is, but you're not always sure of like,
right,
like
yeah.
what, like why, yeah, like what are you doing? Because exactly. I know what I'm doing, but what are you doing? So you automatically come off suspicious. Like, you have to test your environment.
I think that's where the frustration comes, because it's not your intent to do bad. You know what I mean? Right. It's not. You go in there for some butter. You know what I'm saying?
For
like
butter, bro. Like
butter, bro. Like, that's what you're coming for. So
for my mom, like, I'm doing a good deed for my mom first thing in the morning.
And these are practices taught to look at us in a certain light, where, okay, you're a thug, you're a criminal, you're coming with bad intent. It's very again, I'm a very spiritual person, so it's very low frequency, acts.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You get attacked in a lot of adult ways early on. Like, they coming at your consciousness, they coming at your self-esteem. Like, I had very low self-esteem. I could say confidence, because I had like esteem within myself. I always thought like I was like good at the things that I did. Like, I never thought of myself as like lower, but I could just understand. So like I would ask myself a lot of questions like, damn, like what is so wrong with me when I should have been asking like what is so wrong with the environment I'm in.
You know, it's a lot of layers to it that I'm still unpeeling. You know what I mean? I think even as a country that we're still unpeeling, and I think we all, even white people is included, and even black people, Mexican people, all of us, I think we all got to look at ourselves in the mirror like, you know, what are we truly doing to make progress? Like, because we have our own self-conflictions within our own communities beyond as just a whole people. Because, like, you know, like Raw was saying, like, our differences are what makes us one. Because we're not all the same. You know, not all black people are the same. Not even all black people have the same experiences. Like, for real.
I was actually going to piggyback off of something you mentioned just a little bit ago about not every black person being the same.
Yeah.
So then I can I'll tell my vision of what it's like to be a black man in America, because I feel like mine's a little different. Because I haven't seen my version of being black in America actually portrayed in movies or TV or anything. I've seen the far one side of it being you're from the hood and you grow up ghetto and you're trying to make it and that kind of stuff. And then I've seen the other side where they're very wealthy and they're very sophisticated and very smart. And I'm right in the middle, and I haven't seen it. And it feels weird that I haven't seen more black people that are right in the middle. And so I'm half black, half white. My mom is 16 when she had me, and she's black, and my dad's white, and he was 17. So I've had the racial issues, but I've also had a lot of privilege, and I've been very lucky to not experience the exact same type of issues that many other black people have experienced or that do experience, which is one of the main reasons I want to be a part of this podcast, because I feel like I need to talk about it, because I haven't talked much about black issues ever, because I don't know what they are personally. I mean, I've definitely had my run in with racism, but nothing on the scale as to what other people have, or even being followed around a store, or maybe me not even noticing it. I told my partner the other day that I had not realized how much I might be watched until the other day when I was at the store. And now that everything's going on, I'm looking up. I took my sunglasses off in the store because I'm never usually worried about that, and being looked, and I've started noticing eyes watching, and it felt weird and felt different. But from what it's like for me to wake up every day, I don't wake up worried about being black in America. At least I didn't until very recently. Yeah, it feels odd to be in a position that I am, because I'm siding with my black brothers and sisters that do deal with it. And so as a privileged black man is what I would say, I need to stand up. Growing up, I was raised mostly by my white grandma, and so I didn't see the issues because they weren't at hand. I mean, I went to most stores and most places with my white family members. I spent most of my time in my summers with my white family members. So I pretty much got to get through most of my life as a young black kid just fine, with no real racial tension. I didn't really experience most of my racial issues until I moved to Texas when I was in middle school with my mom, and we went to Temple, Texas, and mainly a black community. So it was my real first experience being surrounded by nothing but black people. So I felt out of place. And I mean, I got made fun of at the time for the way I spoke, because I spoke really well, and it was different than what everyone else spoke. It was a different type of black. And so some of my issues that actually were at hand weren't coming from white racism. It was coming from black racism. Yeah. And so it felt different. It felt weird. Not that I'm saying that it was that it's justified at all, but it was just a different type of experience. So I mean, I can say that I maybe had a feeling of what white privilege might be like at times, just because I didn't worry. I never stressed. And the times that I guess I did stress, I didn't fear for my life. I mean, I could, as an example, I was pulled over in LA back in 2012 because I was speeding, and I didn't fear whatsoever that I'd have any issue. So I didn't worry about it. I didn't worry about where my hands were. My registration insurance was in the what do you call the thing? Glove compartment, yeah. And so I never worried. But at the same time, he also asked me to get out of the car, put me in handcuffs, and put me down on the hood of his car while he searched my car. I didn't know my rights, nor would I worry. And it feels weird thinking about it. Then I could have ended up being one of those stories on the side of the freeway, all on accident because I didn't understand what my rights were. Also, I didn't understand the color of my skin at all whatsoever, and what that might have meant to the police officer, and what it did, obviously, putting me in handcuffs and leaving me on his car. That meant something, now thinking back on it. A fear that he might have had that I didn't see a need to have until recently, and now I really understand it. I have 3 kids, one of which isn't black. She definitely believes she is because she's surrounded by her black brothers and me. So it is cool. So she really is trying to embody, and she's the oldest of my 3, so she got to watch George Floyd's video and cried the entire 8 minutes and 46 seconds, and trying to explain to her that she wasn't gonna die because she was really freaked out at that point that she was gonna die if she went out, and now we had to explain it to her that she was okay and that we were gonna be okay, that I was okay, that that her brothers were gonna be okay, but that we still had to stand up and fight for what we believed in and what we needed to stand up for. But excuse me, I'm going all over the place. The channel right back to it all. My walk of life has been just different than other black people, and still to this day, I still feel like the jobs that I may have gotten where I'm the only black person there might have been either because I didn't see the issue, I didn't hold myself differently, I just tried to mix and mend. I wonder if maybe I just spoke well at a young age on purpose because I just didn't want to be associated. Honestly, I don't know. I've really had this run-in of trying to figure out who I am now because I feel like I'm maybe I've been putting on a facade for so long to try not to mesh with a side that is hated, a side that is oppressed, a side that is discriminated against. So that if I didn't really seem like I wasn't with everybody, then maybe I would be okay. And I don't know. Now I'm really questioning how I've approached the way I've held myself and the way I've looked at the issues that have come across all of us. And so it's so difficult to put myself in other black people's shoes. So I'm almost just as I want to be educated just as much as some white and other colored people do to what is going on right now because I don't have it. I don't have the answers, and I want to know.
It's crazy. You even bringing up that point of feeling like, am I like affluent because I'm trying to detach myself, or is it because I'm just naturally drawn to wanting to learn more? Because like I had a lot of the same thoughts growing up, just because I wasn't like a lot of other black kids as well. Like even like me growing up in like a neighborhood full of like black kids living in I wouldn't want to call it poverty, but like living in like low income situations. Mm-hmm. But I always felt that way too because I was more drawn to reading than playing basketball, like things that are like stereotypically black.
Yeah.
But then that's also another like roadblock that was probably super confusing for you just because
it was.
There's no proper way to be black.
No, and there shouldn't be set to like one set stereotype or one set way of living or growing up or talking or being or dressing or anything. Right. It shouldn't be that way. I was a theater kid that loved choir and dancing. And so, and not just because I wanted to dance hip hop, I enjoyed musical theater. Like I wanted to be that kid, and I didn't look at it as a need to be one thing or another.
So based off of what you said, so I want to get into what this movement means to all of us because like we said, like it's people doing things beyond the stereotype, and there's no one way to be. Like we're all humans, we're all different expressions of God, and so it's important that there's different colors, and within these different colors there's different types of people and backgrounds. So personally, the reason why I love the Black Lives Matter movement is because if you fight for the least of us, the people that have it worse off, you're fighting for everybody.
Yeah.
And so I know, Kane, you wanted to go to eventually talk about, like, it's bigger than just the race thing, than just Black Lives Matter. It's about just equality and basic human decency for all. So, if you guys want to just talk about what this means to you.
Yeah. So I did some research on social justice, which is what the talking point really is for all this stuff.
Right.
When it comes to Black Lives Matter, the big thing is social justice, finding justice, getting rid of the injustice, and finding justice within it. The definition of injustice is a lack of fairness. And so that's what we're seeing across the board, which is why I think Black Lives Matter is a great staple and a starting point for what is to come next. When it comes to social justice, it's a gigantic blanket to cover a lot of different things, including women's rights, minorities equality, and LGBTQA+ rights as well. And those are just to name a few that are huge things that hopefully can piggyback off of the movement that's happening right now and be able to grow from here and be able to tackle these issues that are essentially, they are issues that we need to handle here in America. Because I don't think that it's just white privilege. That's one of the biggest problems here. I definitely think that white privilege versus American privilege is a huge thing to discuss as well and figure out how we can get through that. I hadn't thought too much into the two versus the two, but you zoom out and you go on a bigger scale. America's privilege is a completely different story as well. If you do it in the scope of the world, we're the rich bullies. And so it's something I never thought about. But so this movement itself is huge to help these major talking points for the people that are also still being put down and looked at differently the way they shouldn't be. So if you want to piggyback on it, go ahead.
It's a freedom thing for me, man. Like I can keep saying that over and over, but that is just really what it is for me. It's just, I think people should be given that right. And people people deserve that right to, live the life that they so choose. You know what I mean?
Live their purpose out.
Yeah, and what this Black Lives Matters movement is pretty much teaching us just that, is that, what's happening now is just much bigger to come. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah.
It
is just the beginning.
Truly.
Black Lives Matter, as what it is right now to all of us, and what we're seeing mostly is we're seeing the protests, and we're seeing the in-person fight. We're in the streets holding up signs. Absolutely. I mean, we went, Elise and Stefan and Tamara and I, we went the other day to the protest here in Phoenix, and it was an enriching experience because everyone was there with the same energy and the same purpose. And that was beautiful to all be there for the same thing. And I'm not saying like we're all there because we're like at a baseball game, we all there because we like baseball. No, this was a whole different type of experience that was beautiful. And like I said, enriching. It sparked a new fire, I believe, in all of us going to want to do something more about it than what we were already doing in the moment. And I know for me personally, it made me want to do more research and understand and learn more and educate myself more on not only just the movement itself, but everything else around it. And so one of the big things that I believe these protests are doing is they're laying groundwork for the educational part of what's next. Definitely, I believe wholeheartedly that what the next major step when we want to see reform happen, when it not only just police reform, and we want to see changes happen, it's going to come in the form of education and knowing how and when to vote, who to vote for, knowing the law, knowing the rights, what can we do to help change it in our local communities? Because this is the whole large scale thing, but now I think it is it's time to look at home and, okay, so what can I do here right now? Because I can continue to repost videos and I can, post in the comments and stuff and still show up to the protest. But what more can I do, not only as a black person, but everybody? Now that we see this all happening in real time and seeing the change that needs to happen. And so, I believe Black Lives Matter, I hope, will take another step to another direction of education. NAACP as well, taking a step in the right direction with education. Celebrities that have the platform, helping people and guiding them into the education of this is what we can do now to make the change legal. Bring the fight to them. On their turf. That's the high ground I believe that the people that are oppressing have. They know the inner workings of how this system works. They built it. So now we have to understand how that system works and how we can deconstruct it and move it around in pieces. And so I believe that's what needs to happen next. Personally, as a young black man in this country and having 3 kids, I want to deconstruct and figure out what I can do in my part to better the society that we live in, rather than just protest. And rather than just stand with a sign, because I could only do that for so long until, Arizona's voting for our local primaries is coming up here next month, and then soon after is November. And so black communities and Asian communities and Hispanic and everyone alike needs to be ready for these things, because that's where we can have a real voice to piggyback off of these protests. Because I think it's brought everyone out of being behind our screens. I think it's brought everyone out from being able to hide behind, well, I guess it's not my worry. It's everybody's worry. It's everybody's problem across the world. And we're seeing that too, that people across the world are wanting to fight for that change in their own communities and also for our community, which is huge. Being the rich bullies that we are, it's beautiful that people are looking past that and seeing that our lives are at stake and that their lives are at stake. So what Black Lives Matter means to me, besides it just being a starting point too, is an educational ground as well. So, yeah.
You were talking about that too. How what we're doing is not just for us, because we likely won't see the bigger, the mass outcome. Probably, maybe not even in our lifetime. The best of it is probably to come, but we're laying down some more groundwork.
It'll take time.
Yeah, I think that again is these children, man. We gotta create a better environment for them, because they're gonna be the ones that come in and really be the result of what harmony truly is.
True.
These kids are so ahead, and they know it and they feel it. And you see these kids on TikTok talking about racism, talking about the system, and they're only 4 years old. So it's very important that, the things that we're doing now and how hard we're going now, spills into what their lives are going to be.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the past generations, like our mothers and fathers and grandfathers and great-grand, like you think about like the Haitian Revolution and then going forward, you think about the Civil Rights Movement, you think about the Black Panther Party. Like this generation is feeding off of that energy.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? What whilst the energy that's coming towards us of this new, dynamic world that we're about to see, you know what I mean? Maybe we may not able to see the full scope of it, but like we were talking earlier, it's like we're in the direct middle where we're getting the energy from.
We're the link between the past and the future.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
The old age.
Exactly.
And the new one.
Absolutely.
Facts.
We are ushering a new world.
Yeah, we are. We are definitely.
Facts. It's kind of like we're just breaking down the wall, like kicking the door in. Like, we may not all get through that door, but once that motherfucker's kicked open, by the time it's kicked open, that's when these kids can flood the gates and really shake things up and come up with a whole new structure for how we want to exist as people.
Absolutely.
I was just having that talk with a friend too, as far as like what this is all gonna lead to, and like y'all was saying, it's like it's dismantling a lot of people's like that selfishness that they have like beforehand, where it wasn't their problem, or they realized they weren't being attacked directly through that system, but it's very indoctrinated. It's a sneaky battle. It's not all just like gunfire and blood all the time. Like sometimes it's a big time spiritual warfare. Like even the stories that we were telling as like kids, like growing up and like being affected like either like with direct racism or through like colorism, which is a branch off of racism, which is a branch off of this and that. Like, so yeah, so it's about just attacking. It's about attacking the real problem right now. You gotta think outside of yourself a lot these days, a lot on everything that we're doing. Think about your intentions.
It's a lot to think of because I think forget who said it, but it's this whole movement is causing everybody to look at themselves in the mirror and question their beliefs and how we feel about ourselves and other people. And I think even, internal racism we may have about ourselves or about other colored people. There's just so much information going on too, so much to question about ourselves and about society. And we're learning so much more. All our timelines are completely filled with this movement right now, and it can actually get people down. I know, I'm sure all of us have cried recently about this. So what I want to bring up is the topic of mental health. How can we stay involved and active without ruining ourselves mentally and emotionally? Like, how is this making you guys feel? I don't know, just give me your perspective and what can we do to just keep ourselves healthy on the inside?
Sure.
I'll just say this. I think part of it goes back to that past conversation that we were talking about with purpose. So a lot of people, I feel like a main reason why people get so deep into like their despair, like obviously because someone of their community has been murdered, like that's not a heavy thing to put on your heart. Mm-mm. But a big part of that is they feel hopeless because they don't know what to do. And I lean into what we work on, which is music and my art, which at first I did feel like really selfish and guilty for doing. Like even the fact that I get to do that during all of this, like is a big privilege to me. But I realized that's what I have to do. And we were just lucky enough to find our purpose very early on.
Right.
So a lot of people hit the streets with that same energy of feeling very like deeply connected emotionally, which could lead to a lot of emotional exhaustion, which is good for the good fight, but it's not good if you're going to stay on the battlefield. Like the goal of hitting the battlefield is not to die, it's to fight a good fight and to make it home. So
absolutely,
I would say for everybody, don't feel obligated to make change, but don't feel obligated to depress yourself or to have to be able to feel sad. Like I'm honestly trying to focus more on like Phoenix as far as like the changes I want to make. Like
right.
I donated to, like, not to toot my own horn, but like I donated to a local Phoenix bail fund just because I had a lot of like friends and family that went down to these protests. So and sometimes we don't get a call every night, so I'm just it kind of just calmed my nerves to do that. And then but if everybody's taking that action to take care of like where they from, then we don't necessarily have to scurry to worry about a bunch of different sections of each other. And like when we can all just hold down who we are and then stand together in solidarity when it comes to things like spreading information or just what we want to do collectively. Like we can all take those steps, like how we were talking about voting. Like I encourage people to register within my community, within my group of friends, just so we can make those changes to certain seats up there.
I believe the last day to register in Arizona, I really hope I'm right, is July 6th. So if you haven't registered yet, you should register. When it comes to mental health and everything that's going on and how to stay sane while everything's going on, because I definitely hit a point last week when I was so engulfed in everything I was watching, everything I was reading, and I had a small breakdown because I didn't know what to do. I felt powerless all of a sudden because I knew I couldn't just fix the issue, one. And I tell my partner at the time too, she's like, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I feel compelled to get up, get dressed, and go hit the street because I don't know what else to do. I see people being hurt and pepper sprayed and the rubber bullets and more police brutality on top of it all. And it felt I felt compelled to do something, but I didn't know what to do. And that messed with my mental, I think, even more than watching the videos and everything itself, because like I said, I felt powerless. I felt that there was nothing I could do. And unless I was there in that moment, I couldn't. I mean, I wish I was there when George Floyd was being knelt on, because now we see that we could have tackled that cop's ass. It would have been a risk, but it might have been a risk worth taking. We see that now with these protests and stuff. So, but when it comes to mental health and what to do and how to handle it all through all this, one is we don't need to make it our everyday all day. Because even the people that are fighting the frontline fight aren't making it their everyday all day. They still have lives. They still have things that make them happy, like making music, reading books, exercising, being around family, watching movies, or doing nothing. And that's totally fine. I mean, the other day I wanted to still be on social media, but my feed was full. So I went to Pinterest and looked up cool houses and try to make something, a little happy note, and then watched Onward with my kids on Disney Plus, and I just try to bring my mind back away from it, but then went back a little bit later on to make sure I got some more new information, reposted a couple of more things to help spread the word, and then I was able to handle that myself. So I mean, it really depends on what you're into. Whatever makes you happiest should be executed on a daily basis, and to help you keep that mental health afloat. If you're already dealing with issues of mental health, and adding this on probably wasn't easy. And most people, I would say, and I'm not speaking for everybody, but we have something that we're dealing with within our mental health. So this adding on to it was a tough swallow and a tough thing to handle. But we're not alone. First of all, we see that anybody at any point in time will be happy to help, be there for you, and fight for you, no matter what it is. We definitely see that. There are billions of people across the world now standing up for just this one injustice. There is one person that's willing to talk to you if you do need help. And there are hotlines to call. There are family members that I'm sure would happy take your call or see you or meet you or whatever to help you get through whatever it might be that you need to get through with your mental health. And we're not alone. We're never really alone, actually, and that's a beautiful thing. And I know that happens to be the issue with a lot of people that deal with anxiety and depression, is you constantly and consistently, although being surrounded by so many people at work or at school or even having kids, I feel alone, but we're not. So there's definitely avenues and ways to reach out. So I'm not sure how you've handled your mental health through all this.
I mean, I can't even front. Like, it's definitely been exhausting. Like you said, just a full timeline. You're just constantly seeing it. One of the ways that I've been able to release is just, I'll watch movies, I'll play a game or something, or I'll listen to music, or, watch skateboarding videos on YouTube, just like you said, like some just ways to really get my mental off of what's going on, so that's not what 100% my mind is on. But it's also important to not forget what's going on,
Of course.
and I think that falls into transparency. We need to be honest about what's going on, and not only what's going on in the world, but what's going on with ourselves. We have to be honest with ourselves. How are we really feeling? How do we feel about this? What can we truly do? Not everybody's meant to be in the front lines. Not everybody's meant to be outside protesting. Some people are meant to be making the art that reflects the times.
Right.
Some people are meant to be in those offices creating the paperwork.
Right.
And I think, again, we just need to know truly what our roles are, so that we're not so much confused as to when something does go down like this, where do we fall in line?
Right.
You know what I mean? We all need to know where we fall in line, and it piggyback off of what Raw was saying is, I do believe that we need to focus on our own individual sections. We can do as much as we can to help other cities like Minneapolis and Ferguson and things like that. Those are 100 miles away. You can only do so much unless you were to, board a ticket or anything like that. But, but I think it starts at home. It truly does. It starts inside out, not outside in. So I think once we look internally, what the issue is, then we'll be able to really move with the best foot forward.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
One of the next talking points was, what does it mean to defund the police? what there's a lot of people who think that means just get rid of the police, period.
Right.
It's not necessarily the case. So, want to talk about that or?
You want to, Jumbo? Yeah. Go ahead.
I could say as far as like defunding the police is just a movement of resources. Like it's the same way like how the quality of your school is connected to the quality of your neighborhood, which should never be the case. Like those things should never balance each other, and we've seen that by like the stereotypical like black dude is meant to be like a lazy, or like he can only get out of his neighborhood because of athletics or his talent on a mic or like writing. Like, but a lot of it is just because those opportunities aren't presented, and when you have like this militaristic police officer inside of your shitty neighborhood, like it's gonna make you feel some type of way just because of how he's living. And then also you can sense the tension or sense the difference, and then the tension within that difference when you meet individuals like that from like different backgrounds. It doesn't always feel the same socially. So of course we're not going to interact correctly when it comes to every situation with a police officer. So a lot of it is just dispersing those materials that they use to bring us down through enforcement, and then just using it in places that's going to build these kids up. Like me and Slator talk about all the time. Like we have a lot of plans to, affect the youth. Him more so than me. But it's just about presenting those things to those kids, because like you're less likely to commit crimes to keep yourself afloat when there's opportunities in front of your face to go get. Like if I knew about, like if I had like the knowledge that I do now at like 9 years old, I could have helped my mom like be in a way better position as far as like, helping her with her taxes and tax breaks, and figuring out ways we can get her cheaper dental care. And like just finding loopholes, like things that shouldn't be loopholes. They're hidden in plain sight. Exactly. Yeah. Like you just got to stop hiding stuff. That's why I like that whole, I like that George Floyd commercial that they had on Nickelodeon recently.
Absolutely.
With the breathing. Like, I'm like, of course it's scary. Like not everything. It's like telling your kids that like Santa Claus isn't real, and that's probably not the best example. But it's like, bro, not every conversation you have with your kid is going to be sugar coated and good.
Sometimes it can't be.
Yeah, not at all.
Definitely can't be.
Because you wouldn't sugarcoat bullying. Like no. Baby, they're just picking on you because like you wouldn't just say it's because of. Well, like yeah, like that makes sense. Like so. When your kid is looking at the world at large and crying, you can't just be like, "Oh, it's okay," but we're fine, we're okay, because that just reaffirms how they're already feeling, and then that just leads them to it just desensitizes them like the more and more things go on. Like same way, like if you didn't grow up in a household with a gun, and then you finally encounter one, your reaction is gonna be way different, way different. Like my mom showed me her pistol that she had when I was like real young. And I'm still like iffy about guns, but I just understand like the power of them, and then I understand like from a visual level, I have knowledge about like, oh, that's like this is real. Like this thing is real. It has real power. It's real. I've shot guns before, like not in no type of illegal manner, but I went to a range and I shot, and it's a whole different feeling. It just made me like when you understand that power and you've like harnessed it before, or like you experience something like racism, to kind of bring it back to the central point, like those things become reality inside your life, so then your life changes. So a lot of defunding is meant to change people's lives. So you don't have to, you can grow up with a whole different experience by just spending more money on that school, getting them kids the proper education. Like we're just trying to get to a point where there's less reason for authorities, like the police. It's not about, and then eventually that should lead into police not being a system.
Right.
But then it starts, like I said, really steep hill.
So to defund the police, the word defund is such a weird word because it's going to be interpreted differently. The word redistribution is in the Oxford Dictionary definition for social justice, the redistribution of power, and that's what defund the police essentially is meant to mean. is to redisperse the funds of the police. There are police, like in New York, they had said that there's the police departments in New York are getting, in all of New York, are getting $6 billion federal money.
What are the numbers here?
Number here, oh man, I don't know.
It's like 944 billion.
Something crazy, which it made no sense, right? It made no sense, really, because then they're taking money away from the schools every year, and closing down small businesses. It makes no sense. So there's no real equality. So that's where the redistribution of the funds from the police would be essential, like you were saying, to make neighborhoods safer, to create more opportunities, to build up the schools better, stronger, to stop taking away programs and things like that. But I think the word defund is what makes people fearful. Like the talk of, is defund the police mean we just get rid of the police and we take all their money? Or is it that we just, and I had my friend ask me the question, is it just a portion or is it all of it? Well, I mean, I guess it depends on where your stance is and what your interpretation of it is. From my interpretation and the people that I know around me, is that it's a redistribution of some of their funds that they do get. I mean, having as much money as police departments do get, I mean, that's great, and they do deserve to be able. I mean, imagine if you took all the money, then what are they going to be able to do when there's the police that are able to help for other things besides what we're going through? You know, when someone's breaking into a home, when there's domestic violence, different things like that. I mean, if we take all the money away, so no, it's not about taking all the money. It's just redistributing some of the funds to better opportunities and better things in our communities, which I absolutely believe in. But for those who don't understand or interpret the word defund wrong or differently, that's what the true meaning of it. And it was the withdrawal of resources is the definition of defund. And so that, I can see why you look that up. That does seem pretty scary, the withdrawal of resources, because that could not even mean just money. That could mean resources, like I said. So that could mean education, more training, all that stuff being taken away from officers. And it's not that. If anything, it's to redistribute some of the money to then provide more training programs, mental evaluations, getting the right therapist or therapy or right medical attention to these police officers as well that need it. And then being able to establish things like getting a license and being able to be a police officer. Imagine someone that's a doctor or a lawyer that has a license to practice law or to practice dentistry or to be a doctor. If that license gets revoked, they can no longer do their profession. Police officers don't have that. They can legit it's a low bar. You just got to be barely fit enough, the bare minimum, to get in, and then you're in. And of course, I'm sure we've all seen posts all over the place that it'd be like if they had the same structure as teachers or doctors and such, and we would weed out people. Hairstylists, it's crazy that we would weed out the bad ones, and then there will be some that'll get through because they'll be willing to put in the time and energy to get through it, just so they can have that power. Sure, but we'll start to see a change in how everything is moving. So just to reiterate all again, that defund the police isn't about taking everything away from them. It's just making them better for us, because that's the whole point of it.
They're our servants.
Yes.
So how do we have these conversations with, because I know what we're doing, we're trying to influence the next generation, and I'm positive the next generation is going to be way ahead of us. But we still have the older generation. We still have, current, our peers that think very differently, about what we're talking about right now. Yeah. And I think it would be cool also to hear from Denise and Tamara, like, how are we supposed to have these conversations with our family? Because with my family, although I'm Mexican, so we, as people of color, we have gone through our own hardships. My grandmother was beat in school if she ever spoke Spanish. I have uncles and cousins that are, racial profiled, and there's ICE. But even within having our own struggles, a lot of my family's still racist. A lot of my family still doesn't like Black people. Latinos can be very, very racist. So although my parents, I wouldn't say they're racist, but still there's like little things that they say about Black people, about Asians, about, anybody that's different. And I don't think it helps to be angry, to confront them to attack them for that. Although it's frustrating, it can be really frustrating because it's like you just want them to get it, but how are you supposed to, I don't know. It's just I guess that's why I want to ask you guys, like, how are you guys having these conversations with your family?
I guess what I would want to say is that, I grew up in a very Orthodox Jewish family, and my dad is actually from Israel. So I grew up, speaking Hebrew and kind of multitasking both languages. And I was sheltered for a very long time as a child because we grew up in this very heavily religious Jewish community. And even though I lived in Los Angeles and I knew what a Black person looked like, I knew what a Hispanic person looked like, I knew, there are other races, other religions in the world, but I was still very sheltered. Not to say that, my parents are, in any way prejudiced, but I know from at least my dad's experience growing up in Iraq and literally being beaten to death and told that you need to leave because you're a Jew and you're filth and you're garbage. And so growing up, I knew that there are people in the world that hated us Jews too. Like, I knew that. I'm like, even though I'm white, my skin is white, there are people out there that also want to hurt me and kill me just because I'm a Jew. But then the older I got and the older I saw also, racism within the Jewish community. And that was what really upset me, was when I saw that. And I said, but you guys experience just as much prejudice. Why would you put that prejudice on someone else? So also I saw that, which I didn't understand or at all agree with. So I guess, so that's just kind of like my backstory and how I've kind of, for myself, have experienced prejudice and racism. But, talking with my mom, so my parents are pretty conservative. And, even though my mom was the one that, she raised me to love a person no matter what skin color, ethnicity, gender, religion, doesn't matter. She's that person that taught me that. But when I have these conversations with her, like for instance, we had a conversation with her yesterday. It wasn't that she wasn't listening to us, and it's not to say that she was disagreeing with us, but it's almost like there was this element where it's like there wasn't enough piercing through that kind of bubble.
And I think she felt kind of defensive.
Yeah, it was like on the defense. Yeah. Like she was on the defense, and that's not,
Approach that.
And that's the thing, is it's like, how do you approach a white person that all of a sudden, once you say Black Lives Matter, they're on the defense? It's like, how do you approach that? So, and that's what I'm saying. It's like, that's a person that I love dearly, that I look up to, and yet I'm having the hardest time trying to pop that bubble, trying to pierce that bubble and say, Mom, like, no one, like, we're not trying to put you on the offense or whatever, just sit down and listen, kind of thing. And so, yeah, it is a problem. It's a problem for our generation, especially white kids my age, to tell their parents, yo, like, this is what's happening, and you guys need to shift your gear in how you think as how you were raised, because times change, and this isn't, like you said, Slater, this isn't necessarily Black versus white, Asian versus Mexican. It's everybody. We're all in this together. Like you said, Elise, when you start to fight for that one small group, you end up fighting for everybody. So that's what it was. It was hard to kind of get that across to her. But I feel like the more we do talk about it, the more we keep bringing it up. I think that as long as they're willing to listen, I think that there is a way to get to them and to get them to understand.
How do you do that? How do you
I think by just how do I approach it?
Yeah, how do you approach your mom or talk to your family about this?
Well, I always approach everything with like, an open heart. Like even when she's saying something that I disagree with, I look at her and I say, I love you. I don't agree with that, but I love you and I'm listening to you. So I think it's just a way of like being able to really listen, allowing yourself to say, I don't agree with that, but it's okay. And then saying, well, I want you to listen to what I have to say. And honestly, this doesn't come from, telling you that you're bad. This is just the facts. This is just what's happening. And also trying to keep it not emotional, because that's hard for me. I get so emotional when I talk to my parents about it, because I really do feel like we have to talk to them about it, because, they're the ones that put these people in power for us that we're trying to fight against. So, I think the real thing is that I'm finding myself trying to take myself away from the emotions of it all, and just kind of approach it more in a calmer manner. Because I think when you approach it with emotion, it stirs it up more and it creates more conflict. So as long as I approach her in a calm manner, I'm not yelling, I'm not screaming or anything, that's when she listens. Yeah. And so I think it's just honestly also with white kids and their white parents, just keep talking to them about it. Just keep if they want to listen to you, then keep talking to them about it. If they don't want to listen to you, that's a whole different problem, because that's a real problem. That means that they internally are racist and that they don't want to listen. So that is a problem, and I feel sorry for those white kids that have parents like that, because that sucks. But if you do, and you are that white kid and you feel strongly against what your parents feel, then if you feel that you can't get to them, then start a platform of your own to where you can get to your peers that are white, Because if we can't get to that older generation, then we can get to our generation. And I think that is, is very important.
A couple of things that I learned just very recently is you had mentioned language, and then be able to speak the language so that you can actually have the conversation. And that's something that before we even started recording, we mentioned a little bit of, because if you can't speak the language, then you can't communicate properly whatsoever. And so depending on who you're talking to is how you're going to gear the conversation to going the way that you hope it will go. I mean, you can expect the best out of everybody, and it might not go as well as you would hope, like with Tamara, and at least with your mom. It didn't go the exact way that you had hoped for it, but at least she was willing to sit down and have the conversation. And then if they're willing to have the conversation, honestly, they're more than likely willing to have to gather resources if you give them. Most of our older family members don't realize that there are like things like the petitions that go around to help individuals. There's different funds that you can donate to. They might not see it on their feeds. They might not have access to it the way that we do. And so if they're even willing to hear you out, they're more than likely willing to sign a petition, or at least take a look at the resources that would help better these situations. And then you can also help them by guiding them, almost like they guided us, fishing through all of the nonsense and the chaos that we're seeing right now as well. I know that my mom has texted me almost daily about different things that she's like, is this real? Is this not? What is this? She asked me, like, what is Antifa? I don't know. All I'm seeing is it's bad, but I don't know why, and I don't get it. So I was able to find articles and send them to her and give her my own opinion. And, we've been able to have an open dialogue because we found a common language. Today, I had a conversation with my dad for a couple of hours via FaceTime, and we found a common language. And so we were able to have the conversation, and it was great that we were able to. We might not have ended up agreeing on everything, but now we've discovered that we're both open to each other's resources and being able to fish through all that chaos that exists, which is huge to be able to have this conversation. So I definitely to say language is huge, resources and support. Not only support for the people that you're trying to get through to, and letting them know that, like, if you do have any questions, if you want to know anything, I have everything that you could possibly need to help guide you to find your own opinion about what's going on. I definitely don't I believe that my parents need to just get on my opinion because they should, because they're my parents. No way. I want them to be able to form their own opinions like they wanted for me. And so that's those 3 points. Of course, the language resource and support are huge for our parents and our family members alike to be able to grasp what's going on. Some of them really do. Some of them understand. They were there for the LA riots. They might have been there for the civil rights movements, for women's suffrage, all that. They might have been around for a lot of these different things. And when there were Asian internment camps, through Hitler's reign and the Jewish fall and everything. I mean, we really Holocaust. Good Lord, I could not think. Holocaust. I know. Woo, woo. Couldn't think. But yeah, I mean, some of our family members might have lived through these things, so they're going through another round of things happening in their vicinity, in their local, in their lives, and in their neighborhoods and everything like that. So they just need help, just like we do. So, like I said, language, resource, support. Yeah.
Yeah, just reiterating, like, just be totally and completely honest with everything that you're saying, and make sure you're telling your family members the whole truth, like, just all the way through. Like yeah, we're growing up in a very racist state of thinking, a very racist system, and if you're white, you would probably want to bring up the fact that the system is probably not going to attack you in the same type of ways. Or you might want to bring up the fact that, especially if your white children align themselves with either black culture, they have black friends, like, you want to tell them, like, the importance of that relationship in that culture that they're taken from. Because, like, I went to high school, obviously, like everybody in this room. I went to high school, but around a lot of affluent Mexican kids, affluent white kids, and then also a lot of poor black kids, poor white kids, poor Mexican kids. So we would have, like, talks just in class about, you know, the importance of things, like, especially music, like, and black music was always, like, a real hot button for me, because obviously I make it as well, and I'm a black artist, so it means a lot more to me. And that feeling that you get when you hear somebody say, like, oh man, it's in the song, like, I can't just say it, it's in the song. I'm like, he didn't write it for you to say, like, or he or she didn't write it or sing it for you to say, like, it was meant for you to understand, like, listen to what, like, just, you gotta listen. It's about listening, and then it's also, like, and people are more inclined to listen when you're telling the truth, like, even when it seems like they're not, they seem like closed in, because they're listening to what you're saying, so it's a lot to hear. Like, it's like telling somebody, I don't know, like, it's the same as, like, telling anybody the truth. Like, I could be like, oh, like, you got a booger in your nose. You might feel offended, but it's for your own like, good. Like, at the end of that whole interaction, I didn't mean it with any malice. Like I like the fact that she talks to her mom with an open heart, which is how we should be approaching things. But it's also good to be uncomfortable, because if you sense tension, that shouldn't drive you away from, like, wanting to continue the conversation. Like, right. That's just gonna happen. Like,
of course. Yeah. I was watching a movie last night, and thinking the scene to do was he was, like, saying a poem, and, like, the last line he was saying was, like, the only way out is the way through. I think as Americans alone, especially comparing the newer generation, our generation, with the older, there's different realities. There's a big disconnect. And I think that's why it's important for us to have these conversations, even especially for white families and white kids to have these conversations with their white parents, is because there is that disconnect. You know what I mean? Whether we notice it or not, whether we want to believe it, but it is that disconnect. And because as a generation, we're coming in to this connection that the last generation doesn't and didn't, it does create tension. It does create uncomfortness, I should say. But yeah, it's one of those things that, you know, or I should say, like, with him talking about our grandmother, like, she watches nothing but the news. You know what I mean? The only time she gets on the internet is if she's Googling where the fries is or some shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's all about what type of information you choose to consume, because it is a choice to educate yourself or not. You know, whether you want to play the victim game or the victor game, or you want to play the ignorance is bliss game, or if you want to take it head on. It's a fire that's raising, and I think there's nothing wrong with going through that fire, because on the other side is, the grass is much greener. I know it's a fear for a lot of people to receive this information, because there's a lot of truth within it, and there's a lot of information that isn't the most prettiest. It isn't the most sweet. It's very bitter. It's very dark. It's very sad. You know what I mean?
And a lot of it may have to do with yourself.
Yeah, real
that
talk.
You need to come to terms with.
Real talk.
Absolutely.
Real talk. And that goes to what you were saying, just being honest about these topics. You know what I mean? We need to be honest about what we're saying to each other and what we're saying to ourselves. And I think that's just what it really ties into. Is just a lot of it is just really transparency, for real. Like, honestly, it's just being real with yourself. Like what Denise saying, real, recognize real. When we're having these conversations and just really sitting back, like, I love the fact that she gave her, her proposal and her view on what this all means to her, because her view might not be the same as mine. The experience obviously isn't the same. All of our experience aren't the same, even with yours being a black man who felt disconnected with his own black community. You know what I mean? That's important to be aware of that shit, because a lot of people aren't aware of that, or they're so fearful of it that they don't want to be. You know what I mean? And yeah, man, that I think it's strength in that. There's real life strength in just sitting back and really listening, not just hearing it, but just listening and really dissecting what that other person who doesn't necessarily agree with is saying, because they have their own reality. They didn't experience what a lot of these people, what we're going through now and been through. They didn't experience that same thing. So, of course, they're going to feel, well, I mean, it's not happening to me. So, why should I dive so deep into it? Well, then you provide them, well, this is why. Because it even if you don't think it affects you, it does at the end of the day. Not as someone who could be Asian, not someone who could be black or white or Mexican, but as a human being, this affects every single person, like a domino effect. So again, it's just really about just taking in all sides, really looking at it from a scope, stepping outside of yourself and seeing what other people have to say about it, and then approaching it with again, like everyone else was saying, like you guys were saying, without a emotional manner or emotional approach, because anger and fear does not help progress what we're doing or what we're trying to do and what we want to gain here. Yeah. We must come in with a clear mind, an open heart, a real understanding that this can be looked at as something that we can really achieve if we just stop becoming scared of ourselves. And once we start becoming scared of ourselves, we'll stop being scared of each other.
We have an inherent value.
Yeah.
And we all have something to offer. And right now it's hard, but it's the growing pains of the world.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel, although there's still a lot of work to do, I feel like victory is ours anyway.
No, real talk.
This is probably like the least sacrificial people have had to be for the revolution, which is like why what you just said like really hit close to home, like because it's not a big sacrifice. Like, it's all about just learning, because all you have to do is learn now. Like, that's it. Just unlearn and learn. Like, it's not like you don't necessarily have to give up any part of yourself, like, to be here. Like, you can still be a unique person and like believe in what you believe in, but just about understanding. You just have to understand people. Like, there's a lot of things like I understood about the Mexican community, like the structure and like how it is because I was open minded enough to ask questions. Like, while I was in it, I wasn't scared of them because they're my friends. Like, and it's not about it's not about being up on whatever that community's on, because a lot of that stuff wasn't for me as far as like the structure. Like, even the way like a lot of Mexican households like treat their sons and daughters, it's like I seen a lot of like closeness to how I grew up. It wasn't like, oh, like now I want to run with y'all to feel more in tune with you. It's like, no, I just like, oh, okay, I understand the connection that we have when it comes to that. I'm like, oh, that's funny, or like that's something to notice, and then you kind of feel less alone in a lot of aspects.
I just wanted to say that I feel very blessed to be able to have you guys let me listen to you and talk with you and talk to me and tell me your experiences, because I don't know what it's like to be a Black person in America and anywhere in the world, and to have the fears that you have, and to go out in the world day to day and think, oh, maybe I shouldn't go in that direction because that cop is looking at me weird, or maybe I shouldn't, or there's somebody, following me down the aisle and, giving me a weird look. Like, I mean, as a woman, I do experience some of that, I have had experiences where, I've had a man follow me before, or, stuff like that. But altogether, as a white person, anytime I've had interaction with the police, it's been a pretty okay interaction. So I don't know what that feeling is like as a Black American or a Black person, to have that feeling of you in your car waiting for the policeman to come to your window and you not knowing what they're going to do to you. That I don't know. And I don't know how to get rid of that feeling for others, because to me it makes me so upset and angry to hear that I have friends and people that I consider my brothers and sisters, that's how they get treated. And it's I want it to end, but I think what we need to do first is continue this talk, continue this verbal conversation, and for me to listen to you and to really hear you, because again, I don't know what it's like, but I want to understand. So I love you guys, and I really do believe that the longer we do this, the more we interact with each other and we just have these open conversations, that there will be some peace someday. But I have so much love for everyone in this room, even if I've just met you today, and even if I've known you for many years. I truly believe that each human being has the potential to create a big amount of change in this world. So I love you guys. Keep it up, and let's not stop here.
I guess like my last point, like as we're signing out, I would just say, thank y'all again for letting us sit down and talk with everybody. I appreciate it, and I just want to sign off with telling people that they should let what they're going to say to their loved ones reflect the fact that what's going on outside and with people is not a case of opinion or choice. It's a matter of like life or death. Like, this shit it's happening. It's not something that we're choosing to let happen or let rile us up. It's a continued problem that needs to cease. And once people understand that, they might not be inclined, to hit the streets and start rioting with you, but they'll be more inclined to gain that knowledge.
Facts. Well, first of all, I want to say love to everybody. Thank you for, providing this platform where we can even speak about this. I'll just say briefly, we just have a lot to learn from each other. You know what I'm saying? There's, everybody you meet on this earth knows something that you don't. So, you know, take that time to really understand where they're coming from. You know what I mean? I think we made a whole lot of progress. So much. When we step back and really look at what's going on, there's been a whole lot of progress that's been made versus the last 60, 70 years. So it's happening. You know what I mean? The tide is switching, it's shifting, and, you know, we can only keep fighting a good fight and keep banding together to create, you know, a better tomorrow. Because it's one day at a time, you know what I mean? It's not going to happen, you know, with a snap. It's going to take some time. So whether how long that is, or how short that may be, we just got to keep going, you know, and again, keep learning from our experiences, learning from each other's backgrounds and cultures. Because again, it's different layers to it. Just keep learning from each other. I think that's the most important thing, is keep learning with love and trust and openness. Because we all have something to offer. Like you said, we all have something, you know, of value to add, and to also gain as well. But we all have something to add to this you know, this thing that we call, you know, human life. So I'm thankful.
I'll be quick then. It's just to wrap it up as well. It's been an amazing experience that I'm glad to be a part of. So thank you so much for having me be a part of this. And I know that we all feel the exact same way. Just as a slight recap, form your own opinions, do your research, understand your surroundings, and look up your local elections. Remember to vote, talk, educate, learn, share. And when talking to others that might not understand what's going on, find the right language. If they're open to it, hand them resources and support them through the walk as well. Because we are not alone at all. And that channels back to our mental health as well. We are not alone. We have so many people that are willing and happy to give love all around us. And we shouldn't forget that. And if we do, I don't know. And we have each other. We should. I don't believe we would forget it, to be honest. So thank you for this opportunity, y'all. This is amazing.
That's a wrap.